Sí, estábamos muy ilusionados al principio con el gol tempranero, estábamos jugando bien, teniendo ocasiones, fallamos un par de goles y bueno, esto es fútbol y así es el fútbol, ¿no? Todo puede cambiar en un segundo, pero bueno, no supimos solucionar lo que pasó, no supimos solucionar lo que pasó y nada, solo queda callar y seguir trabajando porque todavía queda la Copa y la Liga. La reacción es accionar, trabajar y desde mañana todos callados y trabajar y nada más, seguir las instrucciones del staff, del cuerpo técnico y trabajar, no queda de otra.
Yeah, Santi Jimenez recognizing that he has to put in the work, but at the end of the day, Shaq, what he said is very interesting. They didn't know what to do to be able to have the proper reaction. So I ask you, who is more to blame for Milan's UEFA Champions League exit? Sergio Conceição or the players themselves?
I'm going to put this on the foot of the coach in Conceição, because we're talking about 180 minutes. And the argument here is that certainly in the second leg, and the Theo Hernandez sending off was absolutely critical. And yes, it was. Yes, it was. But it's a two-legged tie. And when you think about exactly how poor Milan were in that first leg at Feyenord, over the two legs, I blame the manager more.
I got to go with the players here. Look, there's a lot of people blaming Sergio Conceição for what happened in the second leg. How can you, when you need a goal, take out Christian Pulisic, who's got more goal contributions than anybody right now? How can you take out Santi Jimenez, who scored a goal? How can you take out Rangers, who's one of your best players? How can you take out anybody who's an actual threat and expect to score? And they're putting it solely on that second leg. Well, let's go back further because Shaq wants to talk about that first leg. Where was Christian Pulisic, the best player on this team in that first leg? Could never get himself going. Where was Rafa Leao? So frustrating to watch, and he's got to be so frustrating to play against. When he had that 2-on-1 opportunity and he chose to go by himself instead of squaring the ball to Santi Jimenez for an easy tap-in. Where was Santi Jimenez, who was a ghost? Where's Rangers, who could only muster a shot? Kyle Walker was horrid, defending with his backside. Mike Van Young, when's the last time you've seen an error like that for a goalkeeper at this level?
Right.
They are lucky that Feyenord and Paixão didn't put this game away in the first leg. They made Paixão look like prime Ronaldinho. Now we go to the second leg. You got your goal. 1 minute in. You got to put this team away. This team could not muster up a shot, and you could not put him away. And then Theo Hernandez, what I could only think is the most boneheaded of second yellows you can commit for simulation in the era of VAR.
To put it nicely.
In the era of VAR. Get sent off and put your team behind the 8 ball like that. Sure, talk about Sergio Conceição and the subs that he made. I want to think he made them because precautionary measures. Santi's hurt. Christian is hurt. They got knocks. They can't go a full 90. You can say, well, you got to go all in. Listen, it's not just all in right now. This team is looking for Champions League spots in Serie A. That's how bad they're doing. So you've got to think about the future as well. He made a decision, left, yes, Rafa Leao, who is frustrating, left Joao Felix, who's even more frustrating, left those guys in, and it didn't result. But you have to think that the players are more culpable for what they didn't do over 180 minutes versus a team that on paper, lost their best player in Santi Jimenez, lost their coach, got fired, and lost their captain in the lead up to this series. You got to think you got to be able to put that team away.
All right, they're 5 points away from making that Champions League spot that you mentioned. Being conservative in that sense, Shaq, was that the right decision to plan for the future, like Herc was saying?
No, I think you play for what's in front of you.
Right.
I think
Even at the expense of losing those players to injury?
Well, I mean,
That's what I mean there.
right, but no, the other side to that same coin is you're now out of the competition to a far weaker side in Feyenord. And to point Christina, yeah, you're 5 points behind Juventus, you've got a game in hand, but you prefer to have the points rather than the games. So while that Champions League spot is within touching distance, I don't think that becomes your focus when you're at this stage of the Champions League and you're certainly, without question, on paper, the better of the two teams. You take that chance. You take that chance If Pulisic and Santi Jimenez has to sit out for a couple of weeks, then so be it. But you don't cost yourself a berth in the next round of the Champions League on a what if.
I mean, when you were, I get what you're saying with the injuries.
It's not a World Cup final because everybody equates this to a World Cup final. You got to go in. If you tear your ACL,
right.
You pull that hammy off, that's what you got to do. You're planning for much more than just this game. And you think,
But isn't that throwing in the towel just a little bit?
That could be fine. But that's not why they lost this series. That's not why they lost this series. They lost this series because over 180 minutes, they couldn't beat Feyenord, who they're better on paper with, and I agree, in 2 games. They couldn't beat them in 2 games. They're lucky that they left with the 1-goal deficit in the first game. This is squarely on the players at hand. And a lot of those players, yes, people want to see the Rafa Leao hate right now. They want to see the Joao Felix hate. But Santi Jimenez and Christian Pulisic are in that as well. Rangers is in that as well. Sergio Conceição has his part to blame here, absolutely. But the majority goes on these players. Mike Maignan, Kyle Walker, what they didn't do, not only in leg 1, but in leg 2.